Hello everybody, this is Zach with Top Deck Nation, coming at you today with another deck profile video. Today we are looking at a deck that really hasn't seen much play. It is in the standard XY on format, and that deck is actually going to be Houndoom Slurpuff. So, a lot of people have tried pairing this up with a few different things. The most popular one I've seen would be Bunnelby. Just because it can use those, those attacks and just kind of mill twice a turn. I think it's got Burrow and then Rototiller. And then you kind of pair it up with Houndoom just because they both kind of mill cards. But in this situation, I think what really makes Houndoom a much more viable card than Bunnelby is the fact that it has more HP. Just take a look here. Houndoom has 170 HP. Unlike something like Bunnelby or even like Durant from Noble Victories, Houndoom is actually kind of hard to take down in one shot, especially in the standard format. Aside from Tyrantrum-EX, there's nothing much in the format that can actually do a whopping 170 damage. Think about what's in the format at the moment. We have, things like Lucario-EX maybe, that's not quite doing 170 damage. We have Yveltal-EX. Again, it would need a lot of energy to do 170 damage. We have, Seismitoad, a few other attackers, Vespiquen, that would need so many Pokemon in the discard to do that. So, in other words, Houndoom's a pretty safe attacker, and what makes him really good is the fact that he has a very efficient attack. Melting Horn for 1 fire energy, it discards the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. That's actually not bad. Over the course of a game, if you can manage to deny all of these knockouts, Melting Horn combined with your opponent just kind of drawing through their deck naturally through cards like Professor Sycamore, Tierno maybe, some other cards like that, Professor Birch's Observations. Eventually, they're going to be running short of cards, and you could actually win a game like this. It's actually competitive. It's actually pretty good. But again, I think the biggest problem with this deck before has been the fact that you don't really know what to pair it with. You have lots of good resources like, hammers and AZ and things like that where you can kind of deny Houndoom getting knocked out and disrupting your opponent's board, but you need to continuously draw those cards. For example, if I play Professor Sycamore and I've got hammers in my hand, there's no way to actually recover those anymore because Lysander's trump card is gone. We don't have a card like Recycle, so it makes it a little bit harder to actually get things back. I suppose you could use the Milotic, that is the ability Sparkling Ripple, that gets 1 card from your discard back to your hand, but trying to squeeze something like that in is kind of it's not really worth it. It takes too much space up. So in this deck, I think that the best partner is probably going to be Slurpuff. That's going to let me continuously draw cards. And what you might notice about this list is that it's actually not running any Professor Sycamore. And yeah, that's right. You heard me. There's no Professor Sycamore in this deck. Reason being that, if I have to Sycamore resources away, I'm probably not going to be winning. And it's also kind of milling myself out as well. So let's go ahead and jump into it just to kind of give you an idea of my mindset behind this build. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it. So let's start off. We do have our 4 Houndoom. That's just to maximize our chances of starting with Houndoom. The great thing is he's very efficient. I can attach a fire and just go to town and just use Melting Horn. So that's our strategy for the deck. Like I said, we do have a 2/2 Slurpuff line. It does have that ability called Tasting. It lets me draw a card. So if I've got both of my Slurpuff out, I'm drawing an additional 2 cards. And if it's active, for example, if I scoop my Houndoom up or AZ or something, I get an additional card. So that's a pretty cool little ability. It's just adding more and more cards in my hand. We do play 1 Shaman. The deck could play 2, but I like 1 because it's just enough to get set up, but not enough to become a liability. If need be, I can Super Scoop up, I can AZ, possibly even Sky Return if I get kind of desperate. But the point being that I'm really relying on Slurpuff a lot more than Shaman. And honestly, you don't really need Shaman in the deck. I've found that honestly the deck sets up just fine because you don't really have to do a whole lot in the deck to begin with. When I attach an energy and attack, I'm already set up. the luxury of using tasting is just to draw additional cards like hammers and supporters and things like that. So you can play Shaman if you want to. I like one in here, but you could also kind of omit it and just kind of replace it with maybe like an extra Slurpuff or something, like a 3/3 Slurpuff line, but that's completely up to you. It just kind of depends on your playstyle. So I'm going to take a look at our supporters real quick before we jump into the items. Like I said, we're playing 4 Tierno in here. Tierno is kind of a lackluster supporter in most decks, but in this deck it's actually really good because, like I said, combined with Slurpuff, if I'm drawing a couple extra cards a turn, suddenly Tierno is not that bad. It's like I'm drawing an extra 5 cards a turn. We're also going to combine that with Scorched Earth, which lets me discard a fire from my hand every turn and draw an additional 2 cards. So, just kind of imagine this. If we have Tierno, a couple Slurpuff, and Scorched Earth, if we manage to do that every turn, we're drawing an extra 7 cards. So that's almost like a Sycamore, except I get to keep all of my resources in my hand. And it's also fantastic if my hand, or if my opponent decides to use like Judge or a red card or something like that. It's not really going to affect me all that much. So that is why I play Tierno. As far as some other supporters, we have AZ. Pretty obvious, that's going to let me scoop up Houndoom if I am about to get knocked out. If they try to Lysander Slurpuff or Shaman, and just kind of stall, I can also AZ and do that, so that's good. We just play 1 because I can always battle compress it and get it back with VS Seeker, so that really gives me a total of 5 outs to AZ. So, and I also play Super Scoop Up, which we'll see in a minute, so that's another reason. We're playing 2 Hex Maniac. Originally I played 1 in this list, but I found that if it's prized, you can really struggle against decks that rely on abilities. Like the new Zoroark, it has that stand-in ability, much like Keldeo-EX. If I play Hex Maniac, they won't be able to use that ability. And also things like Magnezone and Bronzong, you can see why shutting off your opponent's abilities is such a strong move. So, we don't want to get that prized and have a really bad matchup over that 1 card being prized. We play 1 Judge just so we can disrupt our opponent. That's pretty good early on if you want to use it, but it's also good, late game if they manage to have the game at the end, and I can play Judge to prevent them from getting that last Lysander, the last Verse Seeker. It's also a way out so that we don't deck ourselves out. So in other words, like I said, we're drawing 7 cards a turn with Tierno, Scorched Earth, and Slurpuff. Once I get down to 0 cards, if I really have to, I can Judge, put it all back in, and I'm good to go again. So that's why we play 1 of those. We play 1 Lysander, so if I run out of, if my opponent runs out of things like Switch and AZ and things like that, I can just kind of Lysander something up and just keep milling until they automatically lose that way. We're playing 1 Pokemon Center Lady. This is really good in such matchups as like Mega Manectric. It heals 60 and removes all special conditions. Imagine if I had a hard charm on Houndoom, and Mega Manectric uses Turbo Bolt, so it's doing 110. So it's going to do -20, and that means I'll be at 90, and then I can use Pokemon Center Lady to bring me back down to 30. So it's going to take Mega Manectric a couple more hits than normal to actually knock me out, or any other attacker that typically 2-shots you. So that's why that's really good. We're playing 1 Fan Club as well. This is great with Battle Compressor because it's going to let me search out a couple Houndoom. It'll let me search out maybe a couple Swirlix or Shaman just to get set up. Not necessary, but throughout the game, if you're just kind of lacking a certain card, like you're lacking the Swirlixes, you can easily Battle Compress it and get it out. We also have Team Flare Grunt. Again, we are trying to get rid of our opponent's energy as we're milling them to disrupt, so that's why that's in there. We can reuse it with Verse Seeker. And then lastly, we have Xerosic, which lets me get rid of a special energy or a tool. So this is great against things like Giratina-EX, anything that really just relies on special energy cards like double colorless energy, strong energy, double dragon energy, the list goes on. Pretty much every type has a special energy at this point. So that covers the supporters, and we do have Scorched Earth, like I said, for our stadium. So let's go ahead and move on to the items, which is really kind of the core of the deck, the real strategy here. The biggest card is Hard Charm. We're playing 4 Hard Charm because if I put it on Houndoom, it's reducing everything by 20. And let me tell you, this is why the deck is so good. This combined with things like Super Scoop Up and Pokemon Center Lady and AZ is why it's good. That -20 damage may not seem like much, but as I explained earlier, it can turn like a 2-shot attack into like a 3 or 4-shot. It really helps in a lot of matchups, and as you'll see in the video, we're going to have right after this in the game I played, it definitely serves its purpose. Okay, so we're also going to have a couple float stone. That's just there if I get knocked out and I promote like a Slurpuff, I can retreat out pretty easily, and if they Lysander something up, I can just attach it and retreat out, so that's why we play that. And we play Super Scoop Up. This is also a huge part of the deck in conjunction with Hard Charm. So Super Scoop Up lets me flip, and if heads, I get to scoop up my Pokemon with everything on it. So this is pretty awesome because if I'm really close to being knocked out, if I get heads on this, I can pretty much reset the game state here. So really awesome card, and it also benefits me because I don't have to get rid of my cards on Houndoom. I can keep the Fire Energy, I can keep the Hard Charm. Another added bonus is if I use this while it has a head ringer on Houndoom, it'll discard the head ringer. So really good card to play in here. 4 VS Seeker is pretty standard. Looks like the cat got my tongue. I apologize. 4 VS Seeker, pretty standard. Just to make sure we can draw all of our supporters here. We have 4 Ultra Ball. That's pretty standard. That search out any other or any Pokemon in the deck. You know, you could play Level Ball in here, but honestly, there's not really a whole lot of room, and Ultra Ball really does serve the purpose of searching out everything. You know, we play 4 Crushing Hammer. That again, that's the discard energy. Enhanced Hammer, really good against anything that plays special. You know, you'll find that this deck has a great matchup against anything that relies on special energy. So things like Night March, Vespiquen, really good against that. Battle Compressor, that's just to kind of thin my deck out if there's certain cards I don't need in a matchup. Also lets me get supporters to VS Seeker with. And then lastly, we have 1 Super Rod. And Super Rod is really just there if I've burned through a lot of resources and a lot of energy, and lets me put those energy back in the deck. You know, the Pokemon, that is another benefit. I can put a couple more Houndoom back in there if I need to. But honestly, it's really there just for the energy, so we can just continuously use Scorched Earth as we mill our opponent. So that is the deck, guys. You know, overall, it's a very consistent list, very fast. I do like it quite a bit, and it's actually pretty competitive. You know, I've played this at local leagues, I've tested it online. You know, this list is pretty tried and true, so I do recommend trying it out. But let's go ahead and jump into a game that I recently played on Pokemon Trading Card Game online, and let's check it out. Let's see how it goes. Alright guys, looks like we are playing against a guy named Main Juggalo. Looks like he's going to go ahead and flip to see if he goes first. So we'll see what happens here. Looks like I'm going to win the coin flip, so I'm going to opt to go first, of course. Always important to do that just so you get set up. So let's see what our opening hand is here. Let's see. So it looks like we're going to start with a Slurpuff. So not the best start in the world. But this should be okay. You know, I think we can work with this. Hopefully we can get a Slurpuff on turn 2. You know, hopefully we won't get knocked out. But let's go ahead and see what we can make out of this. So out of my opening hand, I'm really not seeing a whole lot I can do here. I don't want to have to discard Super Rod and things like that. So I'm really just going to play Hex Maniac, so that way my opponent's not going to be able to use Shaman-EX to get set up, or any other abilities for that matter. And looks like we see a Zoroark, so this is going to be one of those Eviltal Zoroark decks that we've actually seen become really popular this past weekend at Cities in Indianapolis. A lot of people were playing this with Gallade, but we're going to go ahead and play a Crushing Hammer. We get heads. That's awesome. That means we're going to stop him from attacking us next turn. We get Slurpuff out. Since it is active, we'll be able to use Tasting and draw 2 cards. Alright, so I didn't really get anything off of that, but I'm going to go ahead and play Tierno to draw 3 more cards. I do get another Slurpuff, and I'm going to go ahead and discard just a couple things here. I'm going to discard a Fire Energy and a Team Flare Grunt, and I'm going to pull out Houndoom-EX. So I'm going to go ahead and attempt to get the mill going here with the Melting Horn. I play a Super Scoop Up. I get Tails, unfortunately, so I'm going to go ahead and attach the Houndoom, and I'm going to have to pass. So, you know, a little bit unfortunate, but Super Scoop Up is relying on flips, so that is, you know, a bit expected for the most part. The good thing about next turn is that I will be able to draw 2 more cards, since Slurpuff is my active Pokemon. And oh my gosh, we see that our opponent does get the Zoroark, so Zoroark's going to be able to stand in and retreat whenever it wants to. That will be kind of annoying, because normally At the end of the game, I can kind of Lysander something up, but more than likely he'll be able to just kind of stand in and retreat using like a float stone. So that is going to take one of my outs away from potentially winning. But we're going to see a Mind Jack for 50 after resistance. The great thing about Slurpuff is it does have the the dark resistance. So with dark becoming such a popular deck, maybe this is a pretty good play. So at this point, I've already used Tasting. I'm going to retreat out into Houndoom. I'm going to play Tierno just to draw additional 3 cards. And let me see. It looks like I'm going to play a Crushing Hammer. I get Tails, unfortunately. I was hoping to discard that DCE off. But I'm going to go ahead and opt to VS Seeker with a Flare Grunt because I really want to keep disrupting my opponent here. If he wants to attack me, that's fine. He's not really doing much, but in order to do so, he's going to have to keep wasting his energy that way. So I'm just kind of debating about whether or not I should do it or not. But it looks like I've already played a supporter for the turn, so I'll have to wait until next turn to actually use that Team Flare Grunt. So I'll go ahead and Melting Horn. Looks like one of the Zoroark I was able to discard, so that's pretty good. He puts down an Eviltal, the non-EX. He's going to play a VS Seeker, and what is he going to get here? Looks like he'll be able to judge this turn, so I don't mind this. I really didn't want to have to use my VS Seeker for another like Tierno or something anyway. And it lets me kind of save my scoop ups and things like that also. So, I don't mind this as long as it doesn't get a horrible hand. And wow, I actually got a really good hand off of this. I can Hard Charm, I can put a Fire Energy down, Houndoom, and then Shaman for 6 cards. So, yeah, it looks like his Judge just kind of backfired a little bit, which kind of happens. Judge isn't nearly as powerful as it was in like the Heart Gold era, just because you have so many outs to draw in cards. Shaman EX is really kind of like a soft counter to Judge, just because if I do get judged, then Shaman will just be able to draw cards and just kind of counteract that. So at this point, Zoroark's going to be attacking once again, but he's only going to be hitting for, I believe, 50 damage or so. So I don't really think he's going to be doing a whole lot. So we're going to have to see what he chooses to do. Is he going to Mind Jack or is he going to retreat and pass? But he's actually going to Mind Jack. So I thought it would do 50, but I guess I might have like a Headringer or something on me. But that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and put down the Hard Charm and everything and play down Shaman, draw 5 cards. Alright, so this isn't a bad hand. I do have a 0-6, so that means I'll be able to discard that double colorless energy. I'm going to draw 1 more with Slurpuff's Tasting. And at this point, I think I'm probably just going to be Melting Horn, but I am going to go ahead and discard his DCE. And then I'm just going to go ahead and it looks like I'm just going to pass. So, it looks like I opted to actually not put another energy on the Houndoom to Melting Horn. So, maybe a bit of a misplay on my part here, but more importantly, it's going to let me keep that fire in my hand just in case I do get like a Scorched Earth, just in case I do see my opponent play some kind of shenanigan where they, maybe Megaphone the Houndoom and, Headringer the other Houndoom or something. So not the worst play in the world. I didn't really have a need to mill, I guess. So we're going to see what happens here. Is he going to opt to try to continue hitting me with the Zoroark? Is he going to power something else up? It really just kind of depends on what my opponent wants to do here. We see a Battle Compressor. He's down to about, it looks like 20 cards or so, 26 cards. So, hopefully we can, come back from this. Right now, it's pretty even, actually. I think he's got 26 and I've got 28 cards left in the deck, so pretty even. A lot of people might wonder, with this deck, what's the point of milling 2 cards a turn when I'm burning through my deck just as quickly? Well, the difference is I'm intentionally drawing through my cards, drawing cards that I am actually going to use to disrupt my opponent. But my opponent, when he's drawing through his cards 3 times as fast as he normally would, he's losing a lot of resources that he didn't want to lose. Like, he's already lost a double colorless energy, he's lost his other Zoroark, he's lost some energy in the process. So, I mean, he's lost a lot of resources, and that's why mill decks actually work. That's why people play them. So we will see a Mind Jack for the knockout, unfortunately, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and promote Houndoom. If I had a Float Stone, I would promote Slurpuff, but that's okay. So I'm in pretty good shape here. I am down a couple prizes, but he'll have to knock out a couple more Houndoom-EX to actually win here, so I'm okay. I'm going to play Tasting, get a Lysander, but that's not really going to help me right now. I've used a few fire energy, so I'm going to opt to VS Seeker and go ahead and get the Zero Sick to discard that double colorless energy. So with that off, I think he's used 2 of them so far, and I'll go ahead and Melting Horn, and oh my gosh, we see a third double colorless energy discarded. So that's an awesome mill right there. So he is going to be down to 1 double colorless energy, and at that point he's relying on just those plain dark energies, which I can easily just kind of Team Flare Gun away. So we'll have to see if he can manage to get another double colorless. But I think if he gets a dark energy, he can actually just retreat an Evil Ball. If he does opt to Evil Ball, I think he's doing maybe 80 damage. So, not doing a whole lot there. He's going to Sycamore, and I like this a lot. It puts him down to, I believe, 12 cards. So, anytime they come down to about 10 cards or so, and they've only taken, just 1 or 2 prizes, it's starting to come in your favor. You don't have like an auto win. It's nothing like that. But, it's really starting to come in your favor when your opponent starts playing these Sycamores turn after turn. That definitely helps you out as well. So, I'm just kind of looking at my hand here. I've got 80 damage on me. Probably be in my best interest to try to scoop up Houndoom or something like that, just to kind of make sure I don't get knocked out. So I'm going to go ahead and Tasting for 1. I get a Float Stone, so that's actually pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and Ultra Ball some stuff I don't really have to have. So I'm going to get rid of Fan Club, and then of course I believe the Lysander, I can't really use it in this match anyway. So I'm going to opt to get a second Slurpuff that's going to let me continually draw cards. One strategy or one play I could do right now is actually to scoop up Houndoom with something like AZ. But I would have to draw into AZ to actually get that done. I don't think it's in the discard. But I use Battle Compressor, and that's going to let me discard a few cards here, namely Pokemon Center Lady and some other one-of supporters, and that's really going to help me out here. So I'll get rid of Team Flare Grunt and then AZ. So that's going to let me be able to use VS Seeker this turn to AZ the Houndoom and just kind of reset the board. And that's going to let me go ahead and Melting Horn for a couple more. So I'm going to go ahead and VS Seeker. Let's get AZ to scoop up the Houndoom. And it looks like I actually opt instead to play the Pokemon Center Lady. So, looking back, this is probably the better play. If you AZ, you have to get rid of the energy and the Hard Charm. But the Pokemon Center Lady is actually pretty good because it's going to offset the numbers just enough so that when he Evil Balls me next turn, it's still not going to knock me out. So this play was probably better in hindsight. Just because AZ is great, but it does get rid of like your Hard Charm and your energy, so you don't want to do that too much. So at this point, he can either Wise Cyclone or he can Evil Ball. He's probably going to Evil Ball, which he does. He does 100 damage, so it puts me at 120. So I need to draw a Super Scoop Up or something to kind of make sure I don't get knocked out here. So I'm probably going to just keep drawing some cards. I do have Scorched Earth, so I'll draw a couple more cards. I don't get it, but that's okay. Play Tasting. We draw Fire Energy here, and then I'll go ahead and play another Tasting. So, we're really looking for that, but we don't get it. Play Crushing Hammer, get Tails, so the flips just aren't with us right now. Play Tierno, and once again, we still don't get it. Play Crushing Hammer, oh my gosh, we get another Tails. So it's not looking good right here, guys. We really need to get the Houndoom out of there as quick as possible, but, it's just a matter of if I can do it. I mean, I've used my supporter, I've used my Slurpuffs, I've used Scorched Earth. I can't really draw into any more cards this turn. So the question is, what am I going to do here? I'm thinking about using Super Rod just so I can get a few things back, but I really don't know. So I'm going to actually opt to just use Melting Horn. So Houndoom will get knocked out. He's down to 6 cards, which means I can probably win in a couple turns or so. But it's a matter of, him not having the right cards, I guess, at this point. He doesn't have much left in his deck, I guess. He's got 4 cards left in his deck now, thanks to the Professor's Letter. But he's clearly at an advantage just because he can just kind of Evil Ball his way to victory, and he puts another one on there. So my Crushing Hammers probably aren't going to have much effect here. Right now I think he's doing 140 damage, maybe 120 after Hard Charm. But, he's doing a lot of damage here. And he's going to opt to use VS Seeker. He's probably going to be getting that Lysander, so that next turn, all he has to do is put down Lysander and he wins. So, my opponent is pretty smart here. He knows that, I can just kind of Evil Ball Shaman and then I just kind of win the game. So this is going to be kind of tough. And we see Houndoom come down. He's going to draw 2 more cards. He's going to be down to his last 2 prizes. So this is really scary. I'm going to have to continue to use Houndoom, but this is going to be kind of rough. But I see that I'm almost out of fire energy here. I've got 3 left in the deck, 2 of which are in my hand. So I'm going to go ahead and Super Rod, and that's going to let me get Houndoom. But first I'm going to opt to use Tasting just because I can draw more cards that way. I do draw another Houndoom, so that's awesome. I'm going to go ahead and play Tasting. I am down to 7 cards, so I just have to kind of watch what I'm doing. But thankfully I do have a Judge, and that's going to help me as well. So at this point, I'm just kind of looking at my hand here. I'm going to go ahead and drop down the Houndoom. I'm counting the energy just to see, can he knock me out in 1 hit if I just play down Houndoom. I don't think he can. I think he's doing maybe 140 right now if I attach an energy, so I should be in good shape. I think he's got 1 DCE left in his deck, maybe, so it's hard to say for sure. I think he's actually out of DCE actually, so we should be in good shape with that. But the fact of the matter is that he's still doing a ton of damage. So I'm gonna go ahead and retreat out into Houndoom more than likely, and I'm probably gonna do that. But the first thing I'm gonna do is actually AZ. If I AZ the Shaman, that's going to take away his win condition. I was debating about using Judge, but if he draws into that Lysander, I just kind of lose. So if I look at the math here, he's not knocking me out, and AZ Lysander can't actually win in the game anymore. So at this point, he's down to a single card. Can he win here? He's going to have to use something like Birch's Observation to kind of stay in the game, or a Judge. But that's really the only way he can stay in this game here, guys. Right now I'm in a pretty good board state. It's that the tides have kind of turned at this point. He's down to 1 card left in his deck, so unless he can bring himself down, basically we're in good shape here. We might actually win, but oh no, we see a Birch's Observation and we see a heads. So I actually like that it flipped heads, because that means that we'll be staying in this game a little longer, because he'll still have just 3 cards left in his deck. So he's going to Evil Ball for 140. This is really scary, because I'm probably going to have to rely on a flip, but I Super Scoop Up and get Tails, so oh no. Not in our favor here. I'm going to go ahead and draw cards. Can we get like a Super Scoop Up or something? We do get one. Did we get heads this time? And oh my gosh, we get another Tails. So this is really crazy, because we're relying on the Super Scoop Ups to survive, and I'm just trying to see how many we've used. I think we've used 3 Super Scoop Ups so far. So if there's any way we can draw into the 4th Super Scoop Up, we might have a chance, but I don't know for sure. So we're gonna have to see what happens. And there's also the threat of him having that Lysander potentially. So we're gonna have to watch what we do here. I do battle compress to see what's in my deck. Looks like we do in fact have a Super Scoop Up, but I had to battle compress 1 card just to stay in the game. So the 1 card left in my deck, unfortunately, is the Super Scoop Up. So I'm gonna have to hope that he doesn't have the Lysander here. I'm in good shape, but if he has a Lysander, I pretty much lose, because he can Lysander it and just Evil Ball. So I think what I'm actually going to opt to do is retreat out into the other Houndoom and just kind of pass, because he can't knock the other Houndoom out. And if I have just 1 turn left, I think I kind of win the game. So he's going to draw his next card. He comes down to 2 cards. Does he have the Lysander, or is it the only one of the only 2 cards left in his deck? That's what it comes down to. If he has the Lysander, I lose. If he doesn't, I pretty much win, because I can attach to Houndoom and mill those last 2 cards. So it all comes down to this, guys. Fingers crossed. Can we come out of this with Houndoom? We'll just have to see. So we're waiting on our opponent. He probably realizes, what we're talking about here. If he opts the Evil Ball, he can be in some trouble. He's gonna attach, so that's gonna put him at 140. I think he's gonna be doing 140 damage. So, I think if he attacks, we win. He's gonna put in Shadow Circle, but I'm not seeing Lysander. Every card he puts down that's not a Lysander, That's kind of a relief. And oh, he opts the Evil Ball, so he's doing 140 damage, but that's not enough. I can attach and I can Melting Horn. He's down to 2 cards left in his deck, so we're going to go ahead and Melting Horn, guys. We use it. The last 2 cards. Oh, and there goes that Lysander. So, oh my gosh, we are able to win with Houndoom. Between the Hard Charm, the AZ, the Super Scoop Up, the Pokemon Center Lady, so many outs to being able to just continuously heal your Pokemon, continuously scoop up Houndoom and reset the board. So, oh my gosh, that was a really good game. Houndoom is a fantastic deck. It's a very different deck. If you're used to playing really fast decks like Vespiquen or Night March or something, it might not be the deck for you, or maybe you should just kind of give it a try to, play a different kind of style of deck. But it's a really interesting deck. It provides another win condition, running your opponent out of cards. So there you go, Houndoom-EX Slurpuff. Great card, great deck. Cheap deck, actually. You can take the Shamans out, play Tierno over Professor Sycamore, as I said, and something definitely great to build as like a starter deck, but it's also really competitive, so that's something to keep in mind. But that's pretty much the deck. And I'm certainly going to have some more videos for you guys in the future. Please comment below if you liked the deck. If you didn't like it, just tell me. I'm definitely open to your feedback. And let me know what kind of decks you guys want to see in the future, or what other kind of content, what other kind of videos you want to see. That's basically what this website's for. Check out topdecknation.com. We have a card database that's pretty cool. We also have strategy articles that are 100% free and open to everybody, so check it out. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/topdecknation. We also have a Twitch, so like us on there as well. Follow us on there. But I appreciate you guys watching, and this has been Zach with Top Deck Nation, and I will catch you guys in the next one.